want to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals. So we're in the point of the offseason that now that the NFL draft is over, a lot of analysts, a lot of experts are going to be talking about what teams are going to make it to the playoffs, what teams are not going to be good, yada, 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 right? So I want to make this video to tell you guys that the Bengals are going to be a lot better than what you think, what I think, and what the experts think. Because a lot of people, majority of the time, from year to year, they think just because a team was trashed last season, they're going to be trashed the next upcoming season. They don't really take a deep dive into the roster. They don't really take a deep dive into the free agent and offseason acquisitions. They just go on based on general knowledge. But I took a deep dive into the Cincinnati Bengals. I looked at their draft picks. I looked at their free agency moves. And I looked at their overall roster as a whole. And I think the Bengals are going to be a lot better than what a lot of people think they are. Now, I'm not making this video to say that the Bengals are going to win the AFC North, or they're going to make it to the playoffs, or they're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm not trying to make any outlandish claim. My claim is that if you're a fan of the Steelers or the Ravens or whoever you're a fan of, and your favorite team plays the Cincinnati Bengals this upcoming season and has them on the schedule, you can't look at the Cincinnati Bengals no more on your schedule and be like, oh, we play the Bengals, that's an easy W. Or we play the Bengals, we're going to blow them out. Or that's a guaranteed victory. You can't look at the Cincinnati Bengals and that like no more. The Cincinnati Bengals with the roster they have assembled is good enough to compete with the majority of the teams in the NFL. Now, a big reason why a lot of people think the Cincinnati Bengals are not going to be that good is because of the offensive line. And I understand that, but let's think into hypotheticals, right? Because I like to think positive. Let's go and say that the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line is better than what they were last year, which was below average, right? So let's say the Cincinnati Bengals offense is average, right? Or if you want to dive in further, let's say at least one side of the offensive line for the Cincinnati Bengals is above average and the other side is average. So let's say the left side of the offensive line with Jonah Williams returning, who was their first round selection last year, who didn't even play because he got injured in the preseason. He's returning at left tackle for the Cincinnati Bengals. So let's say that the strongest side of the offensive line for the Cincinnati Bengals is the left side of the offensive line. So the left side of the Bengals is above average, and the right side of the offensive line for the Cincinnati Bengals is average. Okay, so the offensive line should be better. Then you got Joe Burrow, who they drafted with the first overall pick of this year's draft. Joe Burrow has a quick release. He knows how to extend plays in the pocket. He knows how to make plays outside of the pocket. So when the pocket is collapsing, the pocket is breaking down, he can extend plays. He's not just going to be a sitting duck like sometimes Andy Dalton was throughout his career with the Cincinnati Bengals. He's going to be able to make some guys miss. He's going to be able to step up in the pocket, avoid a couple of sacks, and complete some throws down the field. So that's also going to help the offensive line as well. Plus the fact that he has a quick release. Then you look at the targets, who he has to throw the football to. The wide receiver position for the Cincinnati Bengals is really good. In my opinion, it is above average. They have a top 15 receiving core. You got A.J. Green, who has struggled with injuries over the last couple of seasons. He didn't even touch the field last year. You got him coming back fully healthy. You got T. Higgins, who they drafted in the second round, who a lot of people basically compare him to A.J. Green. He should be really good. You got Tyler Boyd, who pretty much has been one of the most underrated wide receivers in the NFL. I'm not understanding how he didn't make it to the Pro Bowl. I think he was a Pro Bowl snub for the last 2 seasons. I felt he should have been a Pro Bowler, because Tyler Boyd was able to come in and step up and be that number 1 wide receiver when A.J. Green was injured over the last couple of seasons. Tyler Boyd stepped in and filled that role really nicely, and I felt like he didn't really get a lot of credit that he deserved for that. Right? So you got Tyler Boyd, you got T. Higgins, you got A.J. Green. Then you got John Ross, who John Ross, a lot of people just think is sorry, he's a bust, he can't stay healthy. But actually last season, John Ross had a pretty nice season when he was actually on the field. Then you got Alden Tate, who also had a couple of nice games as well last year. Then at the halfback position, okay, you got Trayvon Williams, you got Giovanni Bernard, and you got Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon is one of the best halfbacks in the NFL, but a lot of people don't really say his name in that discussion because he plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, with the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line being a lot better compared to how it has been the last couple of seasons, Joe Mixon is going to be on a lot of people's radars. He's going to put people on notice if you haven't already. For the casual football fan, you may not know who Joe Mixon is. But for the diehard football fans, we know that Joe Mixon is a talented halfback. It's just been that the offensive line and the guys he's had blocking in front of him over the last couple of seasons just haven't really been that good. So to the casual football fan, Joe Mixon should become a household name this upcoming season. So the offense for the Cincinnati Bengals isn't bad at all, okay? If people just look past the offensive line, which should be improved, you would know that this offense for the Cincinnati Bengals is very capable of putting up at least 19 to 20 points a game, which is better than majority of the offenses that are in the NFL. Most offenses last season, they couldn't even put up 20. Most offenses last year struggled to even score 17 points, okay? So the Bengals offense is more than capable, if they have capable offensive line play, of putting up 20 points a game. Then you look at the defense side of the ball. This is where I'm excited about the most about the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals have one of the best defensive lines in all of the NFL. And they have had one of the better defensive lines in the NFL over the last, 5 to 6 years? But nobody really talks about that. Let's talk about the most underrated player in NFL history, defensive tackle Geno Atkins. Did you guys know that Geno Atkins has been to 6 straight Pro Bowls? He's really been to 8 straight Pro Bowls, but the season that he missed the Pro Bowl was due to injuries. So really, when he was fully healthy and on the field, he's been to the Pro Bowl nearly every single year of his career since he got drafted. He had 4.5 sacks last year. And I mean, he's one of the best defensive tackles of the past decade. Then you also got defensive end Carlos Dunlap, who had 9 sacks last year. Somehow didn't make it to the Pro Bowl. You also got defensive end Sam Hubbard, who is going into year 3. He was in his 2nd year last season. He had 8.5 sacks. Then you also bring in defensive tackle DJ Reader in free agency, who had 2.5 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, and 13 quarterback hits last year. He had an 86.7 Pro Football Focus grade, which was one of the highest grades amongst interior defensive linemen last year. He's also really stout against the run. So the defensive line for the Cincinnati Bengals is among some of the best in the NFL. And you're playing in a division in the AFC North that has some of the best defensive lines in the NFL. The Baltimore Ravens have a great defensive line. The Steelers have a great defensive line. And the Browns defensive line is not too shabby as well. And also you throw the Cincinnati Bengals defensive line in there. So the Cincinnati Bengals defensive line is really good. They're going to be able to get pressure on the quarterback. And they should be really solid against the run. And with their defensive line being so good and being able to get pressure on the quarterback, that's going to help out the guys in the secondary, such as guys like William Jackson and Mackenzie Alexander, who Mackenzie Alexander had a really solid season last year. Then you also got Jesse Bates, who I believe Jesse Bates this upcoming season will be a top 5 safety by the end of 2020. And you can go ahead and record that, but that's my take. Jesse Bates will be a top 5 safety and football by the end of the 2020 NFL season. You also bring in Von Bell, who is a solid pro. He's not nothing special or anything like that, but he's a solid starter. Then the biggest question is pretty much the linebacking core, which the linebacking core, in my opinion, should be a lot better compared to what it has been over the last couple of seasons, especially last year. Last year was the epitome of how bad the linebacking core for the Cincinnati Bengals was. So I don't think the Cincinnati Bengals linebacking core can get any worse than what it has been last season or the season prior. So you get Akeem Davis-Gaither, who is one of the best zone coverage cornerbacks in this draft class. You also got Jermaine Pratt, who is coming into his 2nd year in the NFL, who pretty much, in my opinion, was the best linebacker that the Cincinnati Bengals had on their roster. You also got Logan Wilson as well. So the linebacking core should be a lot better compared to what it has been in the previous seasons, right? So what this all means is that the Cincinnati Bengals look past their roster. If you take a deep dive into their roster, and you look at the players that they have, the acquisitions that they made in the draft and free agency, the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be a lot better team than a lot of people expect. A lot of people think the Cincinnati Bengals are just going to be pushovers and they're only going to win 4 games and Joe Burrow is going to get killed and Joe Burrow is going to make that big of an impact. Joe Burrow is good enough that you can guarantee that you will have at least 4 wins just because Joe Burrow is on your roster. That's how good I think Joe Burrow is. So I think the Cincinnati Bengals have a guarantee of 4 victories with Joe Burrow on their roster, right? Then plus, I feel they can win a couple more games after those 4 games that you're guaranteed to have with Joe Burrow. So the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be a lot better than a lot of people think. So let me know what you guys think about the Cincinnati Bengals down in the comment section down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel for more NFL videos and content. And thank you for watching.